if we understand what's driving people to take the positions that they do, and we step back enough to reflect on that, and then we find creative ways to connect with that, then we can do things that otherwise we won't be able to do.
We sent a video to client a couple of days ago. They finally got back to us. We kind of missed like one of the key things that we were trying to communicate. Like it didn't make the video. I know that the investment that we've made in the relationship with this client, he's not mad. Maybe a little bit frustrated, but this is going to be very easy to de-escalate if there is any stress or frustration or whatever, because of the how we've tried to manage the relationship.
The most important thing, if you want to create satisfaction, is you've got to make someone feel good about themselves doing business with you. It's all about their ego. It's not about you. This is where I see a lot of people make mistakes, is they get sucked into the product and they don't pay enough attention to the process or the people. And then they are sitting there wondering, like, how come, we delivered a great product, but they don't seem happy? Well, you screwed something up in terms of the process or the people.
On episode 408 of the podcast, we talk about why negotiation is the foundation for everything in business, even if you don't realize you're doing it. We also go over a simple framework to approach any negotiation with confidence, and how to create true satisfaction for your clients. And here's a hint, it's not just about the final product. All that and so much more on today's episode. What is up, my friend? Hey, it's Ryan from the Grow Your Video Business Show. I am so happy that you are with me on the show today. This show is designed for video business owners, production people, filmmakers, commercial, corporate, whatever you call yourself. 20 years ago, I started my video production journey. Today, I've got a studio in Metro Detroit. I've got employees. We work mostly with corporate clients doing brand films, 2 to 5 minute pieces, but we do a lot of different things. All video, mostly video related, I guess. This work has a lot of challenges. Sometimes I look at photographers when we're on set and I'm like, man, it would be nice to just have one bag and a few lenses and some batteries and that's it. But we do so much more. And if you're a photographer, you do a lot, but we do so much more. But I've seen a lot of production companies come and go. I remember early on in my career seeing new people come in and charge half or a fraction of what we charge, and I would always be freaking out like, oh gosh, there goes the neighborhood. And inevitably, those people either learn pretty quick that you can't build a sustainable business by charging not enough, or they just got out of the business because they weren't making money. So fast forward a bunch of years, and I think that still rings true. There's a lot of that rings true. There are new challenges for us today, but I think that if you are committed to working with clients and figuring out what problems they have and helping them understand how video can help them, not every project requires all of the things, a big crew and the best gear. There are a lot of things that can be done on the cheap or on the inexpensive. And becoming a strategist, becoming a thinker alongside of your clients, that's gonna go a long way. And I think that's what will help you build a sustainable business and something that you can grow. So if that sounds like it resonates with you, then you're in the right spot, you're in the right place. This show is for you. We're talking about negotiation on this episode. So I think it's a skill that a lot of us probably could be better at. Especially when we're in, there's so much of life that is about negotiation. And I'm really glad that John helps unpack that for us today. If you're doing this alone and you don't feel like you've got a community, if you've never had coaching, if you've never shared the hard parts of your business that you probably need work on, or you've done those things, but you haven't been consistent in them, then I want to let you know about the Studio Sherpas Mastermind. We are currently taking applications for the mastermind, and the mastermind is going to launch at the beginning of the year. So we've got some runway right now, but we have an application process, and then we'll do interviews with people that we think are good fits. But even if you don't think that you might be a good fit, still consider checking out what does the application process look like. It's not daunting, and you might realize, wow, here's what I say. Here's what I will say is true. People that have been in the mastermind have told me, Ryan, I thought that this, like, you had to be like, 7-figure business, video business to be in this group, or I thought, you had $500,000 or more in revenue. Come to find out, we've had people that have made much less than that. We've had people that are just 2 years in their business that say, I'm ready for something like this. So don't be intimidated. I'm not super scary, and I will be the one interviewing you. But it's more like a fun interview. It's like, hey, tell me about things that you really care about. So you can apply for the mastermind going to studiosherpas.com/mastermind, and you can understand the rhythm of when we meet, how often, what the meetings look like, what is a hot seat, how often do you get a hot seat, how much does it cost, all that stuff. When you go to that webpage, you'll be able to see stories of people, lots of different people who have been in the mastermind over the past few years. And this is like one of my favorite things to do because I get to be with a smaller group. We will do a retreat at the beginning of the year, which is always the best time. And what an incredible way to grow really, really close to the other people that you're in a mastermind with, and really feel like you have this amazing community that is for you. So check out, apply for the mastermind. Don't dilly-dally. If you feel like this is something that you should do, go just fill out the application. It doesn't cost any money. It takes a few minutes. And if nothing else, you'll learn more about some of the things that you want to do in your business to succeed and define success. So go to studiosherpas.com/mastermind and apply. Reach out if you have questions, and see you inside. Okay. With that, let's jump into this episode, and here we go. What's up, friends? Welcome to another episode. Today with me is John Lowry, who is the president of the Lowry Group. It's a tongue twister if I say it 3 times in a row, but it probably shouldn't be. John, super excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Ryan, you got to go watch Bad Boys. It's Mike Lowry. That's how Mike Lowry. So like it's John Lowry.
Wow.
Yeah. So go watch Bad Boys. You'll get it.
So you I'm like reading your bio. You've done so many things. You've got quite the experience, which I just think is amazing. But today I think we're going to talk about negotiation. Probably like our main topic here. Yeah.
Yeah, so negotiation is kind of the basis.
Know something about it?
Yeah, it's kind of the basis for, everything business related. So, the word negotiation actually comes from this Latin root, this word negotiatus. And that word means to carry on business. And so if you think about negotiation as kind of a platform for, your professional life, it really sets you up and equips you to do a lot of different things because it helps you solve problems. It helps you build relationships and manage those relationships. It helps you put deals together, kind of the essence of business, regardless of what industry that you're in. And so I was really drawn to negotiation because it was so universal. And then, through that kind of expertise that I've tried to develop over the years, I've been able to do a lot of work in the legal industry as an attorney. I've been able to help grow a university. I've spent some time in the entrepreneurial world, starting businesses and so forth. And so, it's just been a great foundation, at least for my success. And I think it can be a great foundation for other people's success as well, regardless of what they're doing or want to do.
Yeah. Well, and so if you're just joining us, I don't even know why I say that. It's not like we're live. Before we hit record, my favorite part about today so far is I was just giving John a little glimpse of my story, so he had some context of the show and whatnot. And I told him I worked at this small college where I, started doing video, and he's like, what college? And I never tell people what college, or I don't mention it usually because nobody knows. It was so small. There's like 600 students. He's like, which one? I was like, well, back then it was called Rochester College. He's like, oh. He's like, I know. And he starts naming off all these people and people who had a massive impact on my life. So anyway, this is, I'm excited for the chats. I'm going to see if I can weave some kind of a negotiation in this talk, but we'll see.
Ryan, I think I forgot to mention, my mom is actually on the board of Rochester College. So
what?
yeah,
What's
so
your mom?
still, the Lowrys are still connected with it, and it's a great school outside of Detroit, and it's fun to make that connection with you.
That's so good. So when we're talking negotiation, like think, I run a video production business. What are some areas in the work that I do that negotiations might come up that wouldn't be maybe so obvious?
Sure. So I think you're going to have to negotiate every single day running a video production company. And so if you really think about the definition of negotiation, I define it as a strategic communication process to get a deal or to solve a problem. And so for your viewers, if they just pause and reflect for a minute on the last week, and they just look at their calendar and think about every Zoom meeting, think about every coffee, think about every meeting with their teams, think about every production meeting, that's really nothing but just a whole bunch of strategic communication processes to solve problems or to get deals. And that's really, at the end of the day, even though it's all done in the context of video production, really these people that are running these companies and working in this space, they're really nothing but professional negotiators. And so I remember one time when I worked at a university, they were filming a movie on our campus, and I remember the executive producer or whoever it was, he comes to me and he says, listen, he says, we need to film a scene tomorrow, and we need like a long stretch of road that is closed. And because we're going to film this car crash scene, and do you think you could help us get that tomorrow? And so I remember I was sitting there going like, are you kidding me? Tomorrow? And so I call up my buddy who is the former chief of police and now the city manager of this suburb of Nashville, and said, hey, listen, we're filming this movie. We got this whole crew here. They need a stretch of road. Can you make it happen? And all that did was just spark a negotiation in terms of how they could pull that off. And a few hours later, they had their road for tomorrow and had some police going out there to close it off and all this kind of stuff. And it was nothing but a negotiation in terms of figuring out where, that site was going to take place. And so, I think every single day that, the folks that are in your world and doing your kind of work, they're negotiating all day long.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you say to get a deal, that's like, obvious, for us to have clients, like we've got to be able to do that.
Sure.
But then also that producer mindset of like, hey, we've got an event. It's this Saturday. So we need you to, and it's like, okay, like there's lots of, so much negotiating with, us bringing our equipment, and people are like, oh, you can't come in this door. And we're like, okay, what are our options here? But yeah, just even like I don't spend much time thinking about negotiation. I think just as a producer, it's just embedded in me. Like, yeah, I'm a problem solver, and we got to figure these things out. And how can we make it a win-win-win? I'm curious though. I'm assuming you've got some sort of a process for maybe the approach is the same or very similar for whether it's you've got a deal or a problem that you're trying to solve. But how do you approach, or how do you encourage people to approach negotiations? There's a new word you should put in your next book.
Sure. Yeah. So the book Negotiation Made Simple that came out late last year, it lays out a framework. I don't think there's necessarily a process. The process has to be a bit fluid and dependent upon the dynamics. And and the process is really, while you have influence over the process, the other side does too. And so what I've given people is a framework with which they can place the process. And if they follow the framework, then regardless of what the process ends up being, they can still drive it to a place where they get a good deal. And so as we think about the framework, the first thing you have to manage is you have to manage yourself. And that's the biggest challenge I see that people have as negotiators is they don't manage themselves very well. And the biggest example or the prime moment where this happens is at the opening offer stage. And in this opening offer where you're going to submit that proposal to the client, or you're going to come up with an idea and put it on the table for how you solve the problem or how you set the production schedule, or whatever the case might be. What happens is that people, they grow concerned and they grow fearful about how the other side is going to react. And so what they do is they start making concessions before they ever even get to the negotiation table. And in doing so, they just give up a bunch of value that they may not need to give up just because they're fearful that the other side may not react positively. And the reality is that the other side, if they're really sophisticated negotiators, they're going to know how to react. And it's not going to really be based upon the substance of your move. They're going to know how they need to react to be able to get you to make a larger concession in the next move. And so the first thing you got to manage is you got to learn how to deal with that uncertainty that exists. And you've got to develop a process for how it is that you're going to make decisions in the uncertainty. And so the most important thing that you can learn how to manage is yourself. And once you get to a place to where you manage yourself, then you're at a spot where in this process, nothing will rattle you. And you will continue to be able to just make good decisions. You won't get emotionally caught up in things, or you won't let your fear govern you to where now you're making decisions you probably shouldn't be making because, you're afraid of them walking away or whatever the case. And then the second thing, and really this is the big part of how you manage yourself, is you got to decide how competitive or how collaborative you're going to be. And so if you're negotiating a contract to, produce a short film or a commercial or something, there's going to be substance to that deal that you want to be competitive on because you want to make money on the project. You want to be able to pay your people and you want there to be a margin at the end, but at the same time, you want to get the deal. And so you got to be somewhat cooperative. And so there's a balance there to where you've got to know how to manage how competitive versus how cooperative do I be. And the process that I give people in terms of how to manage that was something that was created by a University of Michigan professor. And it's this process that says, you want to start cooperatively, but you don't want to give very much. And then you want to be able to retaliate or respond. And so if the other side is wanting to be cooperative, respond, reciprocate, be cooperative with them. But if you're trying to be cooperative and they're going to be competitive, then you've got to be competitive too. And then the third step in this little process is you got to be willing to forgive, because there are going to be moments where people try to take advantage of you in these kind of situations. There's going to be moments where you're expecting them to kind of give and they don't give, or they start out real competitive. And as a result of that, once you get them into this dynamic to where they're working with you to put the deal together, then you got to be willing to forgive them for those moments and not look to retaliate. Otherwise, it throws things off. And then at the end of the day, this is where trust comes in. That's so important. You just have to be crystal clear. And the clarity is this, and really this is what builds trust in a negotiation. The clarity is, if you are willing to be cooperative with me, I will be cooperative with you. And there has to be clarity around that. Because if not, people are going to be afraid that you will exploit them and they won't be cooperative. But then also they have to know that if they try to be competitive, if they're looking for one win, not two wins, just their win, not yours, that you are willing to be and you're capable of being competitive as well. And so if you can make it crystal clear that if they're cooperative, you'll be cooperative. If they're competitive, you'll be competitive. Then you incentivize people to be cooperative. And that often leads to good business and good client relationships and things like that.
Wow. All right. Thanks for your time. That was great. See you next time. Just kidding. What would you say? What's one of your favorite negotiations that you've personally been involved in?
A favorite negotiation that I've been involved in. So the negotiation context that I'm usually in is in the legal world, and been involved in some really difficult but interesting negotiations kind of in that world. And many times these are medical malpractice cases. And so there's this human element that's part of them because there's a catastrophic injury usually that is the basis for these negotiations. And the ones that have really kind of captured my attention and been interesting to me are the ones where that human element comes out a little bit. And in that human element, you're able to actually meet people's needs in terms of what they're looking for. And what's interesting is we all think it's money, but it's not money. What they're looking for is healing. What they're looking for is whatever needs, physical needs that they have, that those are taken care of for their lifetime so that they can have security. And so I love those moments where like we can actually meet those needs. And many times it takes a lot of work to kind of get the conversation out of the legal aspect and out of the money paradigm and into something that is more human. And so those are my favorite negotiations. But I've had some fun like business deals as well in terms of, really putting together some interesting things. I remember when I was the chief advancement officer for a large university here in Nashville, I had some great negotiations with donors about, their gifts and the purpose of their gift and the use of their gifts. And I was always surprised about how many of those gifts were designed to solve something inside of the donor. And so I had to be creative enough to figure out how, in the context of a higher education institution, are we going to honor this value or that they want to see perpetuated into the next generation and things like that. And so those are really the fun ones when you have to be creative to really meet the needs of people.
That's cool. I'm just thinking through the work that you do. Like how do you spend your time in work? Like what are you actually doing?
I spend a good chunk of my time serving as settlement counsel, resolving all these lawsuits. And then I also have started a management consulting firm called Thrivance here in Nashville. And so I spend a lot of my time working and coaching leaders on how to negotiate, how to put deals together for their company, how to resolve problems that exist within their company. And so a lot of my time is just spent in an advisory capacity, coaching people on how to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And in doing that, that's where the book becomes such a powerful tool in terms of them being able to read and kind of react to that. But I love like coming alongside people. And then I do a lot of negotiation training and keynote speaking about negotiation. And so I go work with sales teams and I go work with executive teams as far as coming in and teaching those people how to negotiate. And, what's really exciting about those processes is, you can watch companies grow dramatically because their salespeople understand how to capture more value for their product or service. And so I love teaching and helping people kind of have the aha moments. As I think about that, I think about one negotiation story that actually comes out of filmmaking that I think is kind of cool. Now that I've reflected on it, it's actually in the book. But the movie Saving Mr. Banks, do you know that Disney movie from probably, 12, 13 years ago now or something, maybe even longer? That movie, as you will recall, is about the making of Mary Poppins. And it is, I would say, loosely based on kind of that story of how Walt Disney acquired the rights to Mary Poppins from P.L. Travers, who was the writer of the story. And what's interesting is if you watch that movie is nothing but 2 hours of negotiation between Walt Disney and P.L. Travers. And the whole issue, and it's dramatic, is Walt Disney going to get the rights to Mary Poppins to make the movie? And so if you remember, she comes over down to Burbank or Hollywood or wherever the Walt Disney Studios were, and they wine and dine her, and they try to impress her with these incredible movie studios. And then they introduce her to all the people that are going to make the movie, and the artistic folks and the music people and the production people. And as you recall, P.L. Travers, through that experience, starts taking these ridiculous positions. And she starts saying things like, well, I don't want the color red in the movie. And they're like, what? Like, what do you mean? She's like, there will absolutely be no color red. And they're like, whoa, you know. And then she says, like, and I don't want any animated characters. And they're like, what are you talking about? This is Disney. Like, that's all we do is animated characters. What do you mean you don't want any animated characters? And she's like, no, that's silly. We're not doing that. And she kind of does this in her very, British style, right? And so finally it gets to the point to where like they realize this isn't going to happen. And everyone's frustrated, and she finally leaves. And she goes back to London without a deal. And then the movie kind of continues on to where Walt Disney finally kind of stops and reflects in terms of what's going on here. And what he does is a really powerful negotiation technique that's actually outlined in the book. And what he does is he transitions from positions. And so he's like, we wasted our time because she's come and given us all these and taken all these positions, and we've tried to respond to them and we've been unsuccessful. And he takes the conversation in a different direction. And so by transitioning from positions and really thinking about interest, really thinking about what she's trying to solve for in this, and interests have to do with ego and fear and relationships and goals and motives and things like this. And what Disney finally realizes after months and months of frustration is that what is driving her is her relationship with her father. And what's driving her is this fear that her father isn't going to be depicted well in the movie. And it's a legitimate fear because if you remember, and if you've seen the movie, her father wasn't he wasn't the greatest of guys, if you will. He had a drinking problem and he would come and go, but she loved her dad. And she wanted to make sure that he was honored in the movie. And the irony of it, and this is what happens so much in negotiation, is the irony of it is when Walt Disney began to explore and reflect upon his interest in making the movie, his interest was not making money. He had a lot of other ideas that he thought would be better commercial films, but she wanted to make this movie because his daughter, it was her favorite story. And his daughter asked him to make this movie. And so he said, the irony of this whole thing is that she's trying to honor her dad, and I'm a dad trying to honor my daughter. And so he gets on a plane and he goes over to London. And I think there is a little bit of license that they took to create the dramatic effect of this as I've looked into the story in more detail. But the scene is a beautiful scene where he sits down with her and he connects on interest. They don't talk about the color red. He knows that's not the real issue. But he sits down and he says, let me tell you about my father, Roy Disney. And let me tell you about working for him. Man, he was tough. And it's this human, this soulful moment. And finally he gets to the point where he says, I would never want to do anything to disrespect or dishonor your father. And you can trust me that I won't do that. And the moment that he gets there with her, she releases the rights and they get the opportunity to make the movie. And that's so true in negotiation today. If we understand what's driving people to take the positions that they do, and we step back enough to reflect on that, and then we find creative ways to connect with that, then we can do things that otherwise we won't be able to do. And in this case, arguably, the movie Mary Poppins, which is kind of an American classic, would never have been made except for the fact that Walt Disney figured it out from a negotiation standpoint, how to put that deal together.
Oh man, I love it. It's so good. that this just the power in creating connection and listening, right? I mean, he took the time to really listen and reflect and like, what is going on here with her? Why is she not doing this? And then to just the beauty and the power in connection, like true connection. As you're sharing that story, I don't know if you've got this in the book, but what as you're describing that, it made me think of Michael Scott. And when him and Jan were, I forget who they were pitching to, but they were at Chili's, and like, you know, Jan wanted to like do it, and Michael's just like all about relationship, and and they end up getting the deal, and but that's his whole MO, man. Like there's so much negotiation, but it's for him, it's all based on relationship and listening and really caring.
I mean, negotiation so much of life, and that's why filmmakers, it's such great content for filmmakers, because there's drama to it. There's the human element to it. And so my favorite office scene is actually where Michael is asking for a raise, and he's meeting with a lady that he has the relationship with in HR. And she comes in and she's like, well, Holly, you have to ask for, 15%. He's like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to get it. She's like, I know, but you just have to ask for it. And he goes, well, why would I ask for it if I'm not going to get it? She's like, you just have to ask so I can die. And he doesn't understand the process. And so he's so naive to it. And then finally he does it. And she says no, and he's like, what the heck? Like, you told me to ask for it. Like, why? She's like, you don't understand.
Just cool.
Yeah, and that's frankly like that's the real world. There's a lot of people that literally they don't understand how negotiation works, and so they kind of look foolish in terms of how they manage some moments. And that's why, like this book, Negotiation Made Simple, it's designed for someone to where you're going to do this every day. And, will you take 2 hours to read this book to learn about something that you will use every single day? And my hope is that people will do this. I've tried to make it a lot simpler than other negotiation books out there that are very complex, and just lay out a very simple framework, tell lots of stories to make it an enjoyable learning experience. And then at the end, people will be able to say, okay, now I understand at a fundamental level what I need to do to get what I want in this particular deal or in this moment.
Yeah. That's good. Was there like a moment for you where you realized like, hey, there is a lot of stuff out there that's probably way more complex than what you've created, but was there a moment you're like, this would be really good and really, really helpful? I've got to write this and start teaching on it more.
Yeah. Well, I think it just came from, I've probably trained, who knows, 30, 40, 50,000 people in over the years. And so it really kind of came from that of saying like, I can't get to, high numbers of people, but the book can.
Yeah.
And so I had to go through a process of kind of unlearning how to teach negotiation in order to write this book really well. And that's my hope, is that, this book can stretch far beyond, my physical capabilities of being in the rooms with people and speaking to them and teaching this. And in doing so, again, can give people the foundation that they need to be successful and to see their businesses grow and to get more for their work and their enhance their value and all of those things. If people will buy this book, they will read it and study it and put it to work, it will work. This just will work in terms of helping people capture more value for what they do. And as a result of that, a lot of good things will come from that in terms of them being able to grow their businesses, giving their people raises, making more money themselves, doing good in the world in terms of, what they're looking to do. And so that's really what, this whole thing has been about. And I'm just trying to create a bunch of different tools for people to easily access and put to work.
What's one of your favorite stories of somebody that you've kind of coached through, like how to negotiate? What's been the result for him or her?
Sure. So I'll talk about a marketing company I did some work with. I remember I was driving on PCH out in Malibu, California, and I get this call from a CEO of a marketing company, and he had been through the course, and he said, "All right, John, I'm so glad I got you." He's like, "I'm in the middle of negotiating the largest contract in the history of my company." And he says, "Here's the situation we're in. It's down to us and one other firm. We've been told that we are the preferred firm. But the problem is that our pricing is higher than the other firm. And so the client has come back and said, okay, we will choose you if you can match the pricing of the other firm." And so he said, "That's really hard for us to do." He said, "That takes a lot of the margin out of this and makes it difficult." And so he basically just asked the question, what do I do? How do I get this done? Yeah. And so we started thinking, and I began asking him, I was saying, "Okay, well, let's talk about what this deal does for your firm. Like, help me understand that. You said it's the biggest deal in firm history. Tell me what it does for you." And he says, "Well, what it really does is it opens up this entire new industry for us." And he said, "We've been trying to crack this industry." He says, "We're there with this contract, and we think there's an incredible future in the industry." So that's great. I said, "So what can this client, what can it do to propel you into the industry?" And he's like, "Well, their CEO is like one of the most respected people in the industry." I said, "All right, what else?" And he says, "Well, their endorsement will be huge because they're a leader and there's, a lot of other players just like them and they all watch each other." And he says, "Them selecting us is going to be kind of an attention getter and put us on the radar screen." So we started building on that and saying, okay, well, what if we made the money out of those deals as opposed to this deal? Would you still be interested in doing this deal? He said, "Absolutely." Mm. I said, okay, well, so we put together 11 things that this company could do to help this marketing firm advance in this field. And these 11 things didn't cost the company a dime. It cost them a little bit in terms of their political capital. It cost them a little bit in terms of being willing to do press conferences and things like that. And so we were hoping we would get 6 or 7 of the 11. And if so, they were going to green light doing the deal. And the CEO ended up getting all 11 things. The company was like, "Absolutely. If you meet their pricing, our CEO will put out a statement. We're happy to do a joint press conference. We'll, do a video talking about why we selected you. All these different things we'll do, and you can use it. You'll have license to go use it however you want to kind of move into this industry." And so that was a really fun one to be able to help the CEO kind of in that moment, which we only had like a few hours to kind of put that together, but to be able to construct that solution and have it be the solution that has led this company into, its next stage of growth and so forth.
Dude, that's really good. I've had the conversation with, clients before where they're like, "Oh yeah, but do this job and we've got a whole bunch more stuff that, and I'm always like, whatever, like I've heard that line so many times.
Yeah.
But I have thought, well, if we do this one for this client in this industry, like other people are going to see like this will look great on a resume, but never have thought like, well, I wonder if there is anything that they can do. We don't have to adjust the pricing. We can like, let's leave it as it is. The margin's going to be way not what we want it to be. Yeah. But if there are other ways to leverage and other things that we can get out of this, like introductions or, press conference, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, but still to be thinking outside of the box, it seems like a lot of companies would be like, "Oh my gosh, totally. That's the least we would want to do." But at the very least for us to be able to articulate some ideas on like, "Hey, we want to get into your industry. So we want to do a killer job for you guys. Yeah. But then we also want to get hired by the next company for us to do the same thing for them. And we want the margin with that next job. Can you guys help us?" I just think that's genius.
Good deal. Yeah, I worked in this particular case, and I think they've enjoyed a great run in that industry as a result of this one little deal. But again, what happens is if you're not equipped and prepared for that moment, then you can fumble that moment, and fumbling that moment, you can
Can cost a lot.
It can cost a lot in terms of opportunity. And so that's why it's important to have your skills sharp as a negotiator, because there's a lot of moments where you don't get a lot of time to prepare and you got to act. And so you got to know what you're doing and be ready for it. And if not, it's costly.
Yeah, I love it. Well, dude, I'm excited to get my hands on the book. What's kind of like your last bit of encouragement? Again, video business owners, that their craft, they're creative, trying to figure out the business thing.
Yeah.
Like, we do it because we have to. How do you want to leave us today?
Yeah, I think I'd leave you with this thought, and that is to really think about satisfaction. And that's what I've tried to kind of drive people to in the book, is how do you create satisfaction? And, satisfaction is probably a word that, is overused at this point, but I still think it's ultimately where we want to get people who are doing business with our company. We want them satisfied. And there may be moments where we can exceed that and they're more than satisfied. There's other moments where we're just hustling to get them satisfied. And so, but that's really kind of the goal. And so if you think about satisfaction, there's really three aspects to it. And where I think a lot of people make a mistake is they think that the satisfaction comes from the product. The satisfaction comes from, what does the final piece look like? And the reality is there's three aspects to satisfaction. And the product is actually probably, I would argue, the least important. And here's my point. So the other aspect of satisfaction is the process. And so how did the process go? Was it fair? Was it convenient? Was it easy? How did the process get managed in terms of delivering the product and doing business? And that's really what negotiation is all about, is management of process. But if you have people that are not satisfied with the process, even if it's a great product, they're not coming back. They're going to go try to find somebody that is easier to do business with. And then there's the people component. And the people component, this is where egos, this is where fears, this is where, communication and expectations and all these things come into play that are really important around a project and around how you manage a project and how you manage a project team and how you manage a client. And there's a lot of research to kind of back this up. I mean, the most important thing, if you want to create satisfaction, is you've got to make someone feel good about themselves doing business with you. It's all about their ego. It's not about you. It's about them. And so this is where I see a lot of people make mistakes, is they get sucked into the product and they don't pay enough attention to the process or the people. And then they are sitting there wondering, like, how come, we delivered a great product, but they don't seem happy? Well, you screwed something up in terms of the process or the people. But the flip side of that's very true. If you manage the process really well and you treat the people really well, it's amazing to me how many times people will forgive a glitch in the product because they're like, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but it was a great process. I feel great about working with them. I know that they'll do everything they can to make the product perfect. And you get a lot of grace if you manage the process and you manage the people. So that would be kind of my last words of wisdom, if there's any wisdom in those, as far as just sharing a concept with people that they can use that I think can be really impactful as far as serving clients well, growing relationships, and ultimately growing their business.
I'm satisfied with that answer.
I like it.
No, that's really, really good. That's very solid. I couldn't agree more. I think that customer service and just that experience. I mean, we have a product right now. I sent a video. We sent a video to a client a couple of days ago. They finally got back to us, and as a husband and wife, they created the foundation, and the wife emailed us and said, "I love it. It's amazing. We got, we'll get you some feedback later." And then I got a separate email from the husband this morning that said, "Hey, we kind of missed like one of the key things that we were trying to communicate. Like it didn't make the video." But I know he's also a lawyer. He's like very direct, and I know that the investment that we've made in the relationship with this client, he's not mad. Maybe a little bit frustrated, but this is going to be very easy, I think, to de-escalate if there is any stress or frustration or whatever, because of the how we've tried to manage the relationship. It hasn't been just about this 7-minute video. There's a lot more to it. So I think that carries a lot of weight, what you said. I wouldn't just say like, oh yeah, just, I'll just throw this out there too. I think that was really, really solid advice. So appreciate that last bit there. How can people follow you, find you, get the book, all the things?
Sure. So I've got a podcast as well called Negotiation Made Simple. So wherever people get their podcast, you can go and listen to, more counsel there on that podcast. The book Negotiation Made Simple, it's available on audio and wherever you buy your books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, it's there. And so it'll be easy to find. And then if people go to LowryGroup.net, that's where they can learn more about me, about the training, the keynote speaking, and things like that. LowryGroup.net. So that's the easiest way to find me. And people are welcome to reach out, and would gladly coach people in terms of whatever challenges they're having. And I tell people, I want the good people to win in this world. And so I'm excited to come alongside them and help them figure out how to win, whatever that looks like.
I love that. John, super good. Man, I'm so glad we got the chance to meet. This is very, very fun. Love the work that you're doing, and excited to help others know about it as well.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate what you're doing, and keep making great films and telling great stories.
All right, my friend, thank you so much for hanging out on the entire episode. You've made it to the end. If you have a takeaway, something that inspired you, you had an aha moment, feel free to leave that in the comments section, or you can email me. I'm ryan@studiosherpas.com. Would love to hear from you. Seriously, you can also follow us on the socials at Grow Your Video Business, or I'm at Ryan Coral. You can do either one of those. That'd be cool too. But here's my negotiation with you. Just kidding. That's a weird way to say that. I don't even know what that means. I don't think you can. Anyway, here's what I want for you. I want you to be really clear on what it is that you want. And I want you to go after that with everything that you got. If I can support you, let me know. But I'm cheering you on regardless. And that's it for this week. I'll see you on next week's episode. Bye.